Ah, yeah, excuse me. So my microphone was not turned on. Yeah, let me start maybe from the beginning. I want to talk with you, dear friends and colleagues, who attend our seminar about global trade in commodities and about super cycle in commodities trading. Some preconditions for this super cycle and the recent situation. That is the beginning of 21st century is characterized by population growth, growing consumption, mostly in developing countries, unstructured technological growth, and unprepared ecologization of global agenda. All this led to imbalances in production and consumption of energy, food, minerals, microchips, and other goods and commodities. Development of financial markets detached from real sector, increasing debt burden on countries and economies, and other crisis phenomena. 2 years of COVID have accelerated the pace of food, fuel, and production inflation and other crisis processes. Also have greatly worsened readiness of population to fight the crisis in different countries. Has shown vulnerability of the old system that was built since 19th century until recently. The beginning of 2021 displayed record freight figures for sea container and shipment in general, increasing pressure on the prices of commodities and producer goods globally. Here you can see on the slide the interconnection between commodities and inflation. And this is also very hot news. Globally, we can read in newspapers, electronically and printed ones, that we have inflation, hyperinflation. We can see that in supermarkets. Inflation connected to the food or foodflation. We have in energy inflation and inflation connected to the metals, which is industrial inflation. And now all these inflation trends are connected. So this cumulative effect of different types of inflation in current conditions increases the risks of hyperinflation. And also more and more publications and opinions on this topic you can find elsewhere. And there is a cycle of inflation. Inflation firstly initiated by quantitative easing programs actually since 2008, increased during the COVID. All these quantitative easing programs influence in price of the resources, commodities in general, and increase the price of final goods, increase spending, and further this cycle only accelerating. Here is a very good example. You can see the monthly producer price index for all commodities in major economies for the last 2 years. And you can see here the trends. Blue line, United States producer price index, red line, European Union, especially intensified now, and here also Japan and China, which are more or less stable. Since autumn 2022, we have been observing the record prices for natural gas, coal, copper, nickel, aluminum, wheat, corn, neon, palladium, gold, and very many other commodities. This allows us to speak on the beginning of new commodities super cycle, which can be bigger and longer than previous ones in 19th and 20th centuries. To say some words, what is commodity supercycle? These are phenomena where commodities trade above their long-term price trend over a long period of time. Some examples of recent supercycle. For example, oil from $30 per barrel at the beginning of 2020 to approximately 105 now, and there is a continuing trend for growing for the levels of 2008, 2011. Natural gas, very interesting, the tenfold growth of gas prices from $70 per 1,000 cubic meters to 700. Now it is close to 1,100. Motor fuel prices on the record high levels, coal prices and agricultural commodities have reached the level of 2012. And this year, you remember, it was a year of global food crisis. Here are some examples. You can in details look at home, but the trend is obvious. Crude oil, coal, record high, natural gas in Europe based on TTF hub in Netherlands. For example, copper prices, nickel prices, aluminium, palladium, gold, lithium. Lithium is a very interesting case. We don't have time to discuss during the seminar, but I will provide you with information. Please read, very interesting, especially taking into account the strategic importance of this commodity in green transition and also in energy accumulation. Steel prices, actually very interesting, and we'll discuss a little bit later. Wheat, talking about food commodities dynamics, corn, soybeans, rice prices ongoing, lean hogs, so cotton prices, poultry on the extremely high levels, eggs and egg products. You can find very interesting dynamics. August, September 2021 was the beginning of the new commodity super cycle. In 2022, the situation on the global commodity markets continues to be extremely turbulent and unpredictable in its further development. To some extent, commodity markets unite all countries of the world. The situation in these markets has a global effect. That's why it is very important for us to understand and to research the area. I outlined several main contemporary challenges of commodity trading. First of all, global political tensions. Actually, here we are talking about really global situation, not about regional or local ones. So, and these global tensions would only increase in the nearest future. Global inflation caused by sharp increase of money emission or quantity easing we discussed previously. Adverse and unpredictable weather events, for example, droughts, floods, heat waves. The recent events in India are very interesting. Maybe you've read from the news or from the weather forecast, the weather on the whole Indian subcontinent is around 38-50 degrees Celsius. And India announced previously that it is planning to export record high volumes of wheat. Now these plans under the great unpredictability. Disruptions in logistics networks, increasing the price of access to fuel and fertilizers. Underinvestment in the oil, gas, and coal sectors in the low energy prices in 2014 to 2020. So it's 6 years. 6 years, it's approximately 2 investment cycles for oil and gas industry and coal as well. So industry is extremely underinvested. That's why, for example, OPEC and other non-OPEC countries could not increase the production. For example, such countries as Venezuela, Mexico, and others. And increasing prices for metals due to the rising prices of few fossil raw materials and energy. Actually, there are huge problems with forecasting of supply and demand for very many different but connected reasons. And sanctions policy. All these issues are interconnected and have a significant impact on each other. Recent commodity supercycle is actively unfolding, which affects the production sector in 3 main areas. Increasing production costs, production slowdown in various sectors. It means that markets would be undersupplied with goods, and even suspension of production. For example, extremely high prices for natural gas suspended the production of greenhouse fruits and even flowers and vegetables in some countries of the European Union. A failure in supply on semi-finished and finished products lead to decrease in the incomes of producers and households. And actually, this is the main idea, that the households and the stability, socioeconomic stability, would be the greatest problem for the governments globally as a part of this commodity supercycle. Specifics of current situation. Usually we know from the economic theory that where high price lowering the demand. Now it is not working. So increasing commodities prices would not lead to a rapid reduction in consumption and demand for commodities. Competition for smaller volumes of commodities among larger number of consumers has developed recently, and that is sellers market have formed. This led to high prices for all types of commodities. At the beginning, I mentioned that global drivers recently for consumption and population growth as well were developing countries. So developing countries now competing with developed countries for these commodities. And also some least developed countries, even in Africa, are trying to go that way. Rising energy prices alone increase both transportation costs and production costs of intermediate and finished goods, as well as extraction, production, cultivation, breeding of the commodities themselves. So energy actually here is the basic or foundation of this commodity super cycle. As a result, the prices are rising sharply all over the world for basic foodstuff, metals, and finished goods. Many production sites stop, which leads to negative socioeconomic consequences. I want to say several words on the effects of this commodity super cycle on the different group of countries. This is very important when we are talking about the further perspectives of the regionalization, about the further perspectives of the national development. First of all, let's start with the least developed countries. The greatest challenge for them is the issue of food security. And we all read the some documents from the United Nations organization and others about the potentially of the very negative consequences connected to the food security, especially in Africa and some South Asian countries. So these developed countries are under the threat of the shortage of food. Developing countries, the food problem for these countries added with provision of energy and production resources to keep the economy running. So for their further development, they need more resources, production resources, energy, and metals. Developed countries, paradoxically, but developed countries are in the most vulnerable position because traditionally they compensated imports of cheap commodities with expensive manufactured goods. And they may face the greatest number of challenges. In modern conditions, it is not possible to fully implement such a model, since developing and least developed countries supply not only raw materials, but also intermediate ones. Disruption in supply of these materials and goods, unpredictable price changes, and the impossibility of medium-term planning and marketing can significantly affect the production capabilities of developed countries, the standard of living of their population. Actually, we can see signs of these very negative scenarios even now, but this is only the beginning. A common challenge for all group of countries is maintaining socio-political stability against the backdrop of economic problems. The deepening of crisis processes and global geopolitical tension demand from all countries providing strategically safe supply of key resources and goods. So they need to make stocks. Make stocks mean to buy more on the seller's market, as we say, so it's increasing price. Creating increasing material reserves of food, metals, oil, liquefied natural gas, coal, wood, and other commodities that substantially increase the demand and prices for these commodities. Thus, commodity supercycle is going to increase. The country producing commodities are investing in deep processing. So previously, least developed and developing countries, they were selling commodities. For example, OPEC countries were selling oil and later gas, but now they are investing in diversification of their economies and reduction of their dependence on raw materials exports. Now, for example, producers of primary energy resources investing in the production of polymers, fertilizers, basic chemicals and gases. Agricultural producers develop processing and increase value added. In mining, investment in directed in ore, addressing and further metal production. All the above reduces the amount of commodities available for export and affects the prices. Unfortunately, we are very limited with time. I prepared for you specifics for each of the main groups of commodities: agriculture, energy, and metals. If you are interested, you can read it during the After the presentation, when we uploaded this information, there are specifics on the energy commodities, as I said, food and metals trading. Some specifics with a very interesting metal as lithium, for example, which is a part of this green transition. And there are some ideas why this green transition is not possible in the nearest future due to the lack of these commodities. And I want to make some conclusions on this topic. First of all, we are now transiting to the multipolar world. The situation on the commodity markets and risks connected with geopolitical tensions have made food, energy, water, and industrial production nexus extremely important. Yes, here we add water, which is a huge problem, for example, in the Middle East and also in South Asia, and especially transborder water conflicts, partly in Central Asia. So influence directly production of food commodities, but also industrial production. In many industrial processes, water is a key issue. So when talking about commodity supercycle and general development of production in different parts of the world, we need to take into account commodities, food, energy, as I said, and mining commodities or metals, but also water and industrial production, which is a combination of these commodities. The nexus in terms of the analyzing of the recent and further development of the situation. The new reality for the mankind demands for providing food, energy, and general resource security. It means, as I've said previously, so countries, national governments should make stocks. Companies also should make stocks because just-in-time concept is not working since the beginning of pandemic, disruptions in global value chains and logistics. Localization of production of strategically vital goods, for example, medical equipment and medicine, transport, power generation, defense industry, agricultural equipment, communication system, etc. And adequate power supply. So to provide the opportunity of this system to work, we need energy. It means that all types of energy, traditional, renewable, and perspective, for example, hydrogen or nuclear fusion later, all would be required taking into account the new technological processes. The result, first of all, is increasing demand in commodities. And we need to remember that almost all, for example, metals and especially energy commodities are non-renewable. It means that over the time, the prices for them only increases. Less water or less food production, the price increases. Transportation costs, etc. All this negatively influence the production. And the price and positively influence the increase in prices. The current demand without proper supply leads to increasing prices. This means that commodity supercycle will only accelerate in the near. Thank you very much for your.
Thank you, Professor Pitosa. I'm sorry that we do not have enough time for for our two professors to elaborate in more detail. I hope that we will have another occasion sometime later. Meanwhile, I'm now opening the floor for discussion. If you have questions, please raise and ask.
Yeah, maybe I will answer the question. There is a question from the comments for how long the commodity super cycle going to last. Decades, which factor determines length of time? Actually, this is very interesting question, and this question is very complex. Some experts, some analysts, some scientists connected this commodity super cycle with global crisis. Is until recently, and this crisis connected to the transformational phase of our civilization. So initial slide on space race. So outer space and the exploration of the near space,